The Laughing Court. The chains were more for show than function. Sergeant Riley Thorne could have broken them given enough time, but she didn't. Not yet. She needed to see their faces. The hall was absurdly large, towering columns of obsidian and crystal arching like the ribs of some great alien beast. Golden light filtered down from above, and in the center sat the lords of the Galactic Empire, tall, robed, adorned in their ceremonial insignias and smug superiority. Riley was shoved forward by a guard, a six-eyed, insectoid brute that clicked in amusement. She staggered her knees, but looked up, unflinching. The laughter had already begun. "So," crooned a silky voice from the high dais. Lord Excravel, grand strategist of the Empire, leaned forward on his throne. "This is the famed Terran warrior we've heard so much about. She looks squishy." Another alien lord chuckled. "Where's the armor? The nanoblades? This is your best. I've seen livestock on AR-Vin 4 with more muscle mass." A reptilian admiral added with a wheezing laugh. Riley said nothing. Her face remained blank, expressionless. But her eyes? Those burned. Excravel stood, waving a long-fingered hand. Humanity, a fascinating anomaly. Savage, backward, yet annoyingly persistent. "You came to spy on us, yes?" Riley gave a small shrug, the barest hint of defiance. "You could say that." More laughter. A few of the younger nobles clapped with joy, as if watching a stage play. "You piloted a scout ship with analog systems," Excravel said, mock-offended. "No AI, no subquantum neural mesh. Tell me, are humans still rubbing sticks together to make fire?" "That depends," Riley replied. "Would you like a demonstration?" The court fell momentarily silent, then erupted in a fresh wave of laughter. Excravel's grin widened. "Oh, I do enjoy your spirit, human. So crude, so amusing." Riley's eyes narrowed. "You think I came here alone?" The court grew quieter. Excravel tilted his head. "You're suggesting reinforcements? An invasion force?" Riley smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm suggesting you've made a mistake." Excravel descended the steps slowly, his long robe whispering over the polished stone. He stood before her, towering, his pale, translucent skin glimmering faintly. "No, Sergeant Thorne, you made the mistake. You wandered into our space with outdated tech and primitive training. You're lucky we're merciful." He raised a hand. The guards tensed. "But we do love sport," he said almost kindly. "We'll release you into the wilds. Give you a day's head start. Then the hunts begin." "Generous," Riley muttered. "You may even last a few days," Excravel added with a smirk. "You humans are good at running. Not much else." He turned away, signaling the guards. They hoisted her to her feet. As they dragged her toward the exit, Riley twisted her head, her voice cutting through the murmurs of the court. "You wanted a show, right?" she called out. "You'll get one. Just remember, you laughed first." The great doors slammed shut behind her. They dumped her outside the Capitol walls, into the arid wastelands of Veridon 3, a desert moon turned imperial resort and testing ground. The sky was a blistering violet, the sand fine as powder glass. The guards didn't even bother to search her. Why would they? A lone human, no weapons, no allies, dropped into a barren wasteland. To them, she was already dead. But Riley Thorne wasn't a soldier because she gave up easy. She knelt and began to draw in the sand, sketching out a crude map from memory. Coordinates, old signals, rumors she'd picked up from deep files back on the Terran frontier. There had been something here. A relic, a buried outpost from Earth's last great war before the Union fell back and the Empire surged forward. They'd buried more than just bunkers in this system. She whispered to herself, a habit from years of solo ops. "Southwest Ridge. 10 clicks. Buried deep. You better still be there, baby." Riley rose, brushed the dust off her pants, and set off toward the shimmering horizon, each step crunching underfoot like the ticking of a countdown clock. Back in the court, the laughter continued, but Excravel remained silent, watching the door long after Riley had vanished through it. "Send drones," he said to a waiting officer. The alien bowed. "You suspect deception?" Excravel's eyes narrowed. "I suspect humans. which is to say anything. And far out in the wastelands, something ancient slept beneath the sand, waiting to wake. Steel and soil. The wind howled across Veridon 3, flinging grains of glittering sand like razor dust across Riley's exposed skin. Her jumpsuit offered little protection, and each step sank ankle deep, slowing her pace. But she pressed on. 10 kilometers. That's what she remembered. Buried beneath a ridge during the first expansion war, when Earth still had colonies out here, before the Empire came knocking. She reached the crest of Sandstone Rise and dropped to her stomach, scanning the basin below. It looked like every other stretch of wasteland. Broken rock, sand dunes, the occasional dead shrub baked into ash. But Riley saw it differently. Her HUD blinked faintly in her eye, an old neural chip still clinging to life, feeding her data from long-decayed satellites. Come on, give me something. There, a minor heat differential, barely visible, a rectangle of temperature inconsistency beneath the sand. Too precise to be natural. Riley slid down the slope and began to dig with her bare hands. Hours passed. Nails cracked, knuckles bled. Still she clawed. The twin suns crept across the sky. Heat pulsed off the ground like waves of fire. She kept digging. Finally, her fingers struck metal. She laughed, breathless. Using a nearby rock as a lever, she cleared away enough sand to reveal a hatch. Stenciled across it in faded Terran letters. UNSC forward cache, Bravo 9. She entered the code from memory. It denied her. She cursed, tried to back up. Still no response. Then she looked closer. There was a manual override. Rusted but functional. Grunting, she turned the wheel until it screamed, then popped open. The air inside hissed. Cold. Stale. Pressurized. She dropped inside and closed the hatch above her, sealing out the heat. Darkness. She fumbled for the emergency lights, found the breaker, and threw the switch. A soft hum filled the bunker as faded halogens flickered to life. Dust drifted lazily through the air. Shells of ancient supplies, sealed crates, fuel cells. And there, at the far end, resting like a sleeping beast, was an M1 Abrams main battle tank. "Hello, gorgeous," Riley whispered. It was a relic of another era. Its armor was scuffed, the treads rusted, and the barrels slightly pitted. But it was intact. She ran her hands along the hull, fingers brushing against the unit designation, Seraphim 7. It still had the old combat interface jack. Riley connected her neural chip. The startup sequence buzzed in her ear. Abrams MBT systems, online. Armament check. 60mm Sabo, 3 rounds. 120mm heat, 2 rounds. .50 cal, full belt. System charge, 17%. Welcome, operator. Initializing low power mode. The AI voice was basic, but functional. No personality module. Just pure, obedient war machine. "Let's get to work," she said. The next 18 hours were a blur of activity. She stripped the old fuel lines and reconnected them to surviving reserve cells. Cleaned the barrel. Removed the sand that had crept in through the floor grates. She scavenged armor patches from the depot walls and spot welded them over the weakest points. Crude, but it would hold. In the supply locker, she found something else, an old Earth flag patch. She slapped it onto the turret, just above the AI panel. Let him know who's knocking. As the tank roared to life, she guided it up the exit ramp, blasting through the last of the sand. The suns were setting now, twin orbs of orange and blood red casting long shadows across the dunes. From the ridge, she saw it, a drone, circling, no doubt sent by the Empire to track her. It banked left, scanning, then locked on. "Let's say hi," she muttered. She lined up the .50 cal, squeezed the trigger. A burst of fire ripped through the drone, sending it spiraling into the sand in a ball of flame. The Empire would know exactly where she was now. Good. Hours later, Imperial Command reviewed the drone footage. X-Gravel watched the playback on a crystalline screen. A lone human, a Terran tank, an outdated machine moving with impossible precision and power. He stared silent. A junior officer stammered. I said, should we prepare another strike team, my lord? X-Gravel raised one long, spindly finger. Not yet. I want to see what the savage does next. He paused, watching Riley's silhouette atop the tank as it rumbled into the distance, heading toward the nearest outpost. Let her burn herself out. Then we bring her in. Intact. He turned away. I want to speak to her. Back in the desert, Riley drove through the night. No headlights. No signals. Just the rumble of the engine and the endless sand ahead. She tapped her finger against the control panel, syncing the last of her drone signal spoofers. With luck, she confused their scanners long enough to strike. Her next target? The comms outpost northeast of the capital. Small, poorly guarded, but vital. She smiled grimly. Time to remind the Empire why humans were feared, not pitted. Thunder awakens. The comms outpost loomed ahead. 6 towers, a few prefab barracks, and a skeletal garrison of lightly armed alien sentries. It was a strategic point, not well defended but critical. If Riley took it out, the Empire's entire relay net in this sector would go dark. She parked the Abrams beneath a dune's shadow, climbed out, and surveyed the installation through a cracked pair of Terran binoculars. Guard rotations, drone patrol paths, power junctions. The outpost was sleek, modern, but built with the arrogance of those who never expected a real fight. Riley popped back into the tank's hatch and booted up targeting systems. The Abrams growled beneath her like a sleeping dragon ready to breathe fire. "All right, Seraphim," she said. "Let's light him up." The first shell tore through the comms tower in a plume of molten metal and fire. The second hit a troop transport just as it began to lift off. The explosion sent it spinning sideways into a barracks, flattening it. The outpost erupted in panic. Sentries scrambled to respond, but their weapons were designed for soft targets. Raiders, smugglers, unarmed rebels. Not a 68-ton monster roaring across the sand with high-velocity sabos and steel plating. The tank rolled forward, crushing fences, disintegrating droids under its treads. Riley let the coaxial .50 cal sing, stitching energy-wielding troopers into the dust. Alarms wailed. Defensive turrets turned and fired pulse plasma bolts, but the Abrams shrugged them off, its reactive armor sparking but holding. A railgun drone hovered into position. It fired. The shot slammed into the Abrams' flank, cracking a side panel. Riley gritted her teeth, rerouted the coolant lines, and brought the main gun to bear. 120mm heat round later, the drone was nothing but raining metal. Inside the wrecked comms tower, Riley planted thermal charges. As they ticked down, she patched into the relay console and uploaded a simple message. One the entire Imperial network would see before the node burned. "Laugh all you want. I'm not done yet. Sergeant Riley Thorne, Terran Armed Forces." She leapt back into the tank as the charges detonated, turning the tower into molten scrap. As she pulled away, the rising black smoke formed a pillar against the twin suns. A warning, a challenge. In orbit above Veridon 3, X-Gravel stood silently on the bridge of his flagship, the Invictus Eternal. The latest reports were worse than he'd anticipated. 4 outposts crippled, dozens of casualties, and a loss of critical network infrastructure. All by one soldier. One ancient machine. "Deploy the Sorrow-class walkers," he said coldly. And the Eviscerer. The officers around him stiffened. Those weren't standard suppression units. Those were execution weapons, saved for war zones. "But my lord," one began, "such assets are—" "She's making us bleed," X-Gravel interrupted. "She's turning our tools of peace into laughingstocks. She's not just a soldier, she's a symbol. Crush her." Dusk fell fast on Veridon 3. Riley parked in a canyon pass to reload and cool the systems. She patched her wounds with medfoam and munched on protein rations pulled from the depot. Her mind drifted, not to Earth, but to the other Terran soldiers who'd fallen in the Empire's early conquests. Forgotten, mocked. They wouldn't laugh anymore. The tank's sensors chimed. Motion. She leapt into the hatch, and her screen showed them. 3 Sorrow-class walkers, spindly matched with heavy plasma lances and hypermobile joints. and behind them, a monstrous tracked assault platform, the Eviscerator, bristling with cannons. It looked like a cathedral made of weapons. "Well," she muttered, "I did ask for a fight." The mech struck first, bounding over the canyon walls, firing plasma in rapid pulses. Riley spun Seraphim around, absorbing the first blast with the angled hull. She fired once, twice. One walker exploded. The second was crippled. The third leapt atop the Abrams. Its claws tore into the hull, peeling back metal. Sparks flew. Riley slammed the turret rotation, knocking the mech off balance, then punched a fuel rod through its central processor. It twitched, convulsed, and stilled. But the Eviscerator was already locking on. It fired a salvo. The blast knocked Seraphim onto its side, alarms screaming. Riley coughed blood, slammed a fist into the console. "Come on, come on." She rerouted power to the treads, vented excess heat, and fired the last heat round into a rock arch above the Eviscerator. The cliff collapsed. The massive enemy platform was buried under tons of stone and debris. Dust filled the canyon. Silence followed, then a groan. The tank systems buzzed, low, but still alive. Riley sat back, heart pounding, hands shaking. "That all you got?" she whispered. Hours later, under a field of stars, she drove the battered Abrams across the plains toward the imperial capital itself. No more hiding, no more skirmishes. This was her war now. The tank, scarred and scorched, moved like a ghost of vengeance across the night sands. When laughter dies, the gates of the imperial capital stood like titans at rest. 50 meters tall, layered in energy shielding, and guarded by battalions of silver-armored elites. Spires rose behind them, glistening like fangs in the light of Veridon III's twin suns. And toward them, alone on the horizon, came a battered M1 Abrams tank. Black smoke curled from its damaged turret. Scorch marks crisscrossed the hull. Its treads chewed through the sand with grim resolve. On the front, lashed by bullet holes but flapping in the wind, was an old Earth flag. Inside, Sergeant Riley Thorne narrowed her eyes. Knock, knock. Panic echoed through the city. Civilians were ushered indoors. Troops scrambled to deploy war mechs and plasma turrets along the perimeter. Inside the palace tower, Excravel watched from a balcony as the tank approached, slower now, but unyielding. She survived the walkers, the Eviscerator, and now she comes here, he growled. A servant stammered behind him. "Shall we open fire, my lord?" Excravel turned, eyes cold. "No, open the gates." The servant froze. "She's earned an audience." The gates parted with a deep groan of metal and humming force fields. The tank rolled forward, leaving black tracks across the immaculate white stone of the plaza. It stopped at the foot of the palace. Riley climbed out slowly. Her armor was torn, her face streaked with soot and blood. But she stood tall. Dozens of weapons trained on her. None fired. Excravel descended the marble steps, flanked by advisors and guards. The crowd of citizens watched from rooftops, hushed and stunned. "This is what brings terror to my empire," he asked, voice low. "No," Riley said. "This is what brings consequences." She pointed behind her. The tank. The wreckage it had wrought. The broadcast messages still echoing through half their systems. The uprising now stirring in occupied sectors inspired by one woman and a decades-old war machine. "Your empire isn't afraid of me," she continued. "It's afraid of what I represent." "And what is that?" Excravel asked bitterly. She stared him down. "Humanity, the kind that doesn't roll over. The kind that gets up after you laugh and comes back with fire." A siren blared in the distance. An emergency broadcast from Sector 12. Then another from the outer colonies. Protests. Riots. Imperial banners burning on outer worlds. Dissent erupting like wildfire. The crowd stirred. Excravel's eyes twitched. "You're bluffing," he hissed. Riley tapped the side of her head. "Check the feed. This isn't a war anymore. It's a reckoning." A low rumble vibrated through the plaza. From the southern sky came 3 Terran drop ships, black, angular, scarred from deep space. Their insignias were faded but clear, Terran Resistance Command. Excravel turned pale. "You're not the only one who knows how to wake ghosts," she said. By nightfall, the capital was silent. No more alarms. No more laughter. Ex-Gravel, cornered by the threat of full-scale rebellion and diplomatic humiliation, signed a ceasefire agreement under duress. The tank was parked in the courtyard outside the peace chamber, its scorched frame now a monument. Riley stood by its side as the Terran flag was raised above the palace walls. Later, on a Terran medical ship orbiting Veridon 3, Riley sat in the med bay, for in her arm, bandages on her ribs. A young officer approached with a tablet. "Ma'am," he said, "the broadcast of your assault went viral across half the Empire. You've got rebels naming tanks after you. One group even called themselves Thorn's Fangs." She raised an eyebrow. "Catchy. They're already negotiating refugee corridors and trade routes. Command says it's the biggest strategic win since the Titan Wars." Riley didn't smile. She simply nodded, her eyes distant. "I didn't do it for the glory," she said. "I did it because I was tired of seeing them laugh." As the ship cruised silently through the void, she returned to the observation deck. Below, Veridon 3 spun in its golden orbit, no longer a symbol of imperial pride, but of something else. Resistance, revenge, and redemption. She rested her hand on the railing, tired but satisfied. Behind her in the cargo hold, Seraphim 7 lay dormant, its barrel lowered, systems on standby, waiting, just in case someone else forgot what happened the last time they laughed at a human.